Drake has recently found himself in a whirlwind of controversy, and it's hard to ignore how much of a mess his actions have created. Let's rewind a bit to the Noia music video, where Drake tried and honestly failed to imitate Kendrick Lamar in a bizarre, cringeworthy way. That move alone seemed to set the tone for his recent behavior, following that he made some public comments that seemed designed to discredit others and blamed them for trying to ruin his career in a manner similar to how he was accusing them of doing to him. But rather than owning up to his actions, Drake immediately ran to his legal team, looking for validation from lawyers, and a judge. Drake's legal efforts were aimed at making his claims look legitimate, trying to show that he was in the right and that his accusations had merit. And surprisingly, the judge allowed him to move forward with this legal battle, despite the fact that this action felt like one of the most anti-hip-hop moves in the genre's history. In a shocking turn of events, the judge denied Universal Music Group's UMG motion to stop this legal chaos from progressing. As a result, Drake and his team are trying to spin this as a victory, offering celebratory statements that only seem to highlight their delusion. They are attempting to make it seem like UMG was hiding something major, something they were desperately trying to cover up. But in reality, this is the win that Drake's team seems to think it is. The truth is that their effort to move forward is only going to amplify their eventual failure and expose even more embarrassing details about Drake's career. At best, Drake's attempt to position himself as the victim is a short-term illusion that only paints a bigger target on his back for future failures. Before we dive deeper into this, let me ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe, because what we're about to discuss is truly a pivotal moment in hip-hop history. It's crucial for everyone to understand the implications of what's going on with Drake right now, so don't miss out on what's to come. Now let's talk about Drake himself, possibly the most desperate and soft rapper we've seen in a long time. Drake seems to have shifted his focus away from music, and his new Karen persona might just be working better for him than his rap career at this point. His fan base and team appear to be more focused on validating their delusions than creating meaningful music or art. This shift is glaringly evident in the way they tried to spin the Noia music video, attempt to push a narrative that doesn't quite match reality. The most bewildering part of this entire situation is the way those around Drake, including his fans, are trying to justify his actions. They're playing into a narrative that makes Drake look like a mastermind, someone who's always several steps ahead of the industry, and his label. In their eyes, Drake's success is inevitable, and anyone who doubts him is simply part of a grand conspiracy. They believe this moment of legal action is proof that Drake's victory over the music industry was always planned. But unfortunately for them, there's some bad news. This narrative is a far cry from the truth. While Drake's team may be celebrating the legal win, it's far from the victory they believe it to be. What just happened with UMG's legal team is significant. Drake's label tried to stop this whole thing before it could go further. They were attempting to put a halt to the legal process, hoping to stop the exposure of whatever secrets Drake is trying to bury. The reason for this: UMG is aware of the potential damage this legal situation could cause not only to Drake's reputation, but to his entire catalog of music. Let's be honest here, if UMG were to go public with all the information they have about Drake, it could have disastrous consequences. Not only would it ruin his image, but it could also significantly devalue the worth of his most beloved projects. UMG's priority is to protect their business and their investment, which includes Drake's music. They didn't want this situation to escalate to the point where everything could be exposed and cause irreversible damage. That's why they were trying so hard to prevent this from going any further. However, Drake, in his attempt to push every narrative possible and gain sympathy, has effectively given UMG no choice but to let everything play out. Now his label is in a position where they may have to reveal everything to protect themselves. It's not that they want to go public with this information, it's that Drake's actions have forced their hand. In conclusion, while Drake may have thought he scored a victory by moving forward with this legal drama, he's actually set himself up for an even bigger failure. His attempt to play the victim and manipulate public perception is ultimately going to backfire, and the truth is likely to come out in ways that could ruin his career for good, his label UMG is now in a tough spot, and they may have no other choice but to expose everything, including Drake's darkest secrets. Drake has recently found himself tangled in a series of actions that not only showcase his desperate attempts to defend himself, but also reveal how far he's willing to go to manipulate narratives. His behavior and the actions of his team indicate a broader strategy push any talking point that might generate support regardless of whether they truly believe in it or not. One of the most notable examples of this is how Drake and his team continuously pushed the narrative that Kendrick Lamar's success, specifically with Not Like Use, was artificially inflated by bots. This argument, which was repeated over and over by Drake and his low-ranking affiliates, was an attempt to discredit Kendrick's organic success. However, as soon as it became clear that they couldn't back this claim up with any solid evidence, they quietly dropped the angle, making it clear that they never really believed in it to begin with. It's absolutely ironic, though, because Drake and his team spent so much time pushing this narrative. They tried to convince people that Kendrick's success was somehow tainted, but now that the story isn't working, they conveniently abandoned it. What this demonstrates is that Drake and his team have been tossing out whatever talking points they think might stick, even if they don't believe in them themselves. The goal isn't about truth, it's about manipulating public perception and playing on the emotions of his fan base. They've thrown these narratives at people, hoping that fans will latch onto them, support Drake, and continue to discredit Kendrick. This strategy has been fully executed, even though it's becoming clearer with every passing day that these claims were baseless from the start. What's even more frustrating is that Drake's fan base has already fully embraced this narrative. Despite the fact that Drake and his team are now backing off from these claims, many of his fans are unwilling to let go of the story. They've become so invested in the idea that Kendrick's success is legitimate that they won't even question the lack of evidence to support it. Drake's team knows this, and they've been capitalizing on it by continuing to play on their emotions, feeding them any idea that could potentially harm Kendrick's reputation. And yet, even after backtracking on these unfounded claims, Drake's fans continue to run with the story. This is an unfortunate reality for Kendrick, as Drake's team has done everything they can to stir the pot, knowing full well that they can keep their narrative alive as long as his fans are hooked. This is what's most frustrating about the situation. It's not that Drake is necessarily trying to prove Kendrick wrong, it's that he's been trying to create an unnecessary controversy for the sake of his own narrative. The fact that Drake is now backing off from these claims without ever being held accountable for them shows that he was never truly invested in the truth. He just wanted to sow discord, create drama, and ultimately bring down Kendrick by any means necessary. And now, as if trying to elevate his image further, Drake has turned his focus to every convenient opportunity to play the victim. One of the most glaring examples of this is how he has tried to use moments from Kendrick's success to paint himself as someone who's been wronged. For example, the Super Bowl halftime show became another stage for Drake's narrative. Despite the fact that he's admitted to his label that the song Not Like Yours hasn't done him any favors, he's still allowing it to get more exposure. This sends a clear message. Drake seems more interested in creating a narrative around being wronged than in actually addressing the flaws in his image. The victim mentality that Drake has adopted is especially clear when you look at his actions surrounding the Grammys and the Super Bowl. Rather than focusing on his own music, Drake's behavior has been about drawing attention to how he believes he's been mistreated by the industry and how Kendrick is somehow involved in that mistreatment. It's hard to take him seriously, especially when you look at how desperate his actions have been. The Noia music video, which seemed to echo all of Drake's attempts to discredit Kendrick, only reinforces the idea that at the heart of it all, Drake's real goal was to take down Kendrick, whether it was through accusations or by creating a sense of competition where none really existed. Now, after what feels like an all-time low with Drake's theatrical performances and the way his team is spinning this whole situation, we see where all of this is headed. Despite their attempts to portray themselves as victors, this case is far from over. Drake and his team now find themselves on the verge of gaining access to significant requests they've made regarding his label. One of these requests, which is especially revealing, is Drake's desire to see Kendrick Lamar's record contracts. This move doesn't seem to be about any real desire for justice or transparency. Instead, it comes off as a petty attempt to cause chaos and create more confusion, especially for Kendrick. Drake's team team, is only making things more complicated, aiming to irritate everyone involved from his label to Kendrick Lamar, rather than trying to win the case on solid ground. If we take a step back and look at this from a broader perspective, it becomes clear that Drake's strategy isn't about winning in the conventional sense. It's about creating distractions, shifting the focus away from his own shortcomings, and using Kendrick Lamar as a pawn in this entire game. What Drake has done here is just another attempt to stay relevant by stirring up drama and playing the victim, all while undermining the success of others. In the end, it's unlikely that any of this will result in the outcome Drake is hoping for. Instead, he's only digging himself deeper into a hole, and his obsession with trying to discredit Kendrick Lamar is only making him look more desperate and petty. So after all the theatrics and manipulations, it seems that Drake's attempt to make himself the center of attention by pitting himself against Kendrick Lamar will ultimately backfire. The truth is, his actions have done more to harm his own reputation than they have to discredit Kendrick. It's clear that no matter how much he tries to manipulate the narrative, he's only proving that his real aim isn't about justice or truth. It's about control, drama, and dragging others down to elevate himself. Drake has without a doubt earned the title of being the biggest Karen in hip-hop history. There's no denying that at this point, and it's a title that seems like no one will ever be able to take from him. His actions over the past few months have been a whirlwind of drama, confusion, and manipulation. But despite all of this, one thing remains clear: Drake has not won anything, nor has he come close to turning the tide in his favor. What has actually happened is that the door is now open for information to flow freely, and for both sides to parties involved to engage in a back-and-forth exchange of facts and claims. Drake's fans and his team, who issued celebratory statements after certain developments, may think they've pulled off a major win, but in reality, all they've done is dig a deeper hole. To them, every little shift feels like a monumental victory, as they believe Drake is some sort of hero in the music industry. They look at him as a savior, believing that everything he says is the truth. And to be fair, for his fans, any small victory in this saga feels significant. They are invested in Drake's success and are rooting for him at every turn, even when his actions seem questionable. However, this is where they're mistaken. While they may think they have something substantial now, as the case moves forward and more information starts to come to light, there are countless directions this could go, and none of them are favorable for Drake. The narrative around "Not Like Us" and the claims of manipulation or bot-driven success are starting to unravel, and in the process they're exposing the cracks in Drake's story. These claims are not just Drake's way of dealing with what has to be considered one of the biggest failures in hip-hop history. His attempt to discredit Kendrick Lamar and "Not Like Us" was a defensive move, but now it's opening Pandora's box. What's especially dangerous for Drake is that this entire situation is no longer just about his beef with Kendrick. It's about his entire career and the machine behind his success, which is far less organic than his fans have been led to believe. As things unfold, new details could emerge that shed light on how Drake's success has been shaped not by pure talent or hard work alone, but by industry tactics, manipulation, and perhaps even a lack of transparency about the way his music has been marketed and promoted. For someone like Drake, who has built a career on projecting an image of success, this could be catastrophic. Take, for example, the narrative that Drake has been suppressed by the industry. This claim has gained traction in certain circles, with Drake positioning himself as a victim of a system designed to hold him back. But the reality is, this narrative simply doesn't hold water. When you examine it closely, Drake, in pushing this agenda, is only creating more chaos for himself. His label, which has long supported him, will eventually begin to pull back their support. It's not just because of his antics within the hip-hop community, it's because of the greater ramifications of his actions. The more he pushes this victim narrative, the more his label may be forced to distance itself from him, especially if it becomes clear that the machine behind his success is no longer something they want to be associated with. What's even more concerning is the potential impact this could have on his music catalog. Drake's older albums like Take Care and Views are still the core of his streaming success. These records continue to perform well, not because of any recent releases or diss tracks, but because of the strength of the songs from his past. But if his label is forced to expose the inner workings of his success, it could devalue not only his current work, but also the older catalog that has carried him for so long. If the public and the industry start to understand how much of Drake's success has been manufactured rather than purely earned, his entire legacy could come into question from a business standpoint. It's clear that Universal Music Group UMG did not want this to happen. They knew that exposing the inner workings of Drake's rise to fame could have disastrous effects not only on his image, but also on the value of his music catalog. When UMG tried to put a stop to this legal situation from the outset, it was because they understood the potential cost of allowing this case to go further. The costs were not just financial, they were reputational, and they involved the risk of ruining the very thing that has kept Drake on top for so long, his image as a self-made superstar. But now that the case is open and more information is set to be revealed, Drake's label may have no choice but to go public with details that could damage his career irreparably. It's not just about his current reputation anymore, it's about the long-term value of his music and his position within the industry. UMG's worst-case scenario is that they will have to reveal uncomfortable truths about Drake's rise to the top, and these revelations could shake the very foundation of his success. The truth, it seems, may be far more damaging than anything his team has tried to spin thus far. At the worst point, Drake and his team could lose their grasp on what has been one of the most valuable catalogs in modern music. His older works, which still enjoy strong streaming numbers, could lose their luster if it becomes clear how much of that success was the result of industry manipulation rather than pure artistic achievement. The fact that UMG tried to block this case from moving forward makes a lot more sense when you consider the potential fallout. This situation is no longer just about Drake's relationship with Kendrick Lamar, it's about the broader implications for his entire career. And let's not forget that at the core of all of this is Drake's hypocrisy. He's not only trying to discredit Kendrick Lamar's success, but he's also positioning himself as a champion of artistic freedom, all while undermining the very industry that helped shape his career. His actions suggest that he's more interested in maintaining his image and playing the victim than he is in being honest about how he got to where he is. In the process, he's exposing himself as someone who has benefited from the same industry tactics that he now claims to oppose. Ultimately, Drake's actions in this saga will likely have far-reaching consequences. While his fans may continue to rally behind him, the reality is that the longer this case goes on, the more likely it is that his reputation will suffer. The truth is slowly coming to light, and it seems that no matter how hard he tries to manipulate the narrative, Drake's legacy will be shaped by what is revealed in the coming months. What seemed like a small victory for him may end up being the catalyst for his downfall, exposing not only his hypocrisy, but the artificial nature of his success. Drake's situation is only going to end terribly for him. Despite his being granted access to information he requested, the fact that he's receiving this data doesn't change the reality. There is still no concrete evidence to back up his claims. All that's likely going to happen is that he'll dive deeper into this situation only to discover that Not Like Us was an organic hit, and that his entire narrative is still delusional. As we hear more about this ongoing drama, it's becoming increasingly clear that Drake will only drag things out, causing even more frustration for fans of rap and good music in general. What we're witnessing is a mess that's only going to get worse. Fans of hip-hop and those who appreciate lyrical skill are already starting to get tired of Drake's antics. Instead of focusing on making good music, he's pushing this unnecessary narrative, which is distracting from the real work of creating art. Until the day comes when Drake is finally exposed for being a fraud, his team and him will continue acting as if they have a legitimate reason for doing all of this. They'll keep pretending they're saving the music industry even though they're not. This is becoming a bigger issue for hip-hop itself. If this situation continues to escalate, it could set a dangerous precedent in the genre. As it stands, artists might be scared to speak their minds, take shots, or engage in rap battles for fear that the losing side will resort to underhanded tactics to gain some kind of victory. The fear is that should an artist lose a rap battle, they might try to take legal action or go through extreme lengths, as Drake has done, to win in the court of public opinion. This would take away the essence of hip-hop, an art form built on competition, lyricism, and freedom of expression. It's also incredibly frustrating when people suggest that we should just let go of the beef or stop criticizing Drake for his actions, we can't ignore the damage he's trying to inflict on hip-hop as a culture beyond his issues with Kendrick. Lamar Drake is taking aim at the very foundation of rap, the actions he's taking by seeking Kendrick's record contracts, and whatever else he's trying to dig up only show how far he's willing to go to create a mess in the music industry. It's clear he's trying to derail the art form, and that's something no true fan of hip-hop can support. As Drake continues to unravel this entire situation, he is only going to make things more chaotic than they've ever been in the history of hip-hop. His focus on Kendrick Lamar's success and trying to expose details about Kendrick's career is just part of a much bigger plan to disrupt the culture. With every new twist in this saga, it becomes increasingly evident that Drake is more concerned with tearing down others than he is with actually making meaningful music. It's becoming clear that he's more interested in tearing apart hip-hop than in preserving or contributing to it in any meaningful way. This is why it's more important than ever for hip-hop fans, artists, and everyone in the community to call out Drake for his actions. We need to stand up for the integrity of the genre, especially now that he's trying to derail everything we love about it. For those of us who appreciate the art of rap music, it's crucial to continue supporting the artists who keep the culture alive and authentic. Kendrick Lamar, for example, is one of those artists who continues to push the genre forward in a way that is both innovative and true to the roots of hip-hop. While Drake spirals into this mess, it's important to support artists who stay grounded and keep the essence of hip-hop alive. Even though all of this seems chaotic and disheartening right now, hip-hop will ultimately survive no matter how much Drake or anyone else who tries to undermine the genre messes with the culture. The community of hip-hop fans and artists will continue to thrive. The industry has faced challenges before, and it will rise above this one as well. We just need to stay focused on what truly matters: the music, the artists, and the community. So now, with all of this unfolding, what do you think about Drake's latest move and his team's actions? Do you think this situation will continue to worsen, or will it eventually blow over? What kind of impact do you think this will have on hip-hop in the long run? And what will be the ultimate result of this whole mess? I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything that's happening. If you've made it this far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton, especially considering how crucial this moment is for the future of hip-hop as an art form. The stakes are higher than ever, and every voice counts as we continue to support what's best for the culture. Also, if you want to see how Drake has managed to create one of the most annoying eras in hip-hop history with his actions and legal battles, check out the suggested video.